It often begins with something small, a chilly morning, a cup held between your hands, and a quiet realization that your fingers are still cold long after the room has warmed. I've had many patients gently mention this over the years, not as a complaint, but almost as a curiosity. Doctor, why do my hands and feet feel colder than they used to? They ask. And here is what makes this moment so important. What if that coldness isn't about temperature at all? What if it's your body's way of whispering that something deeper is changing? Research suggests that as we age, circulation doesn't simply slow down, it becomes less efficient, especially in the smallest blood vessels that reach the extremities. These tiny pathways, like narrow country roads, begin to lose their flexibility, and when that happens, warmth, the natural signal of healthy blood flow, struggles to reach its final destination. Imagine your body as a beautifully designed home heating system. The heart is the furnace, pumping warmth through every room. But over time, the pipes that carry that warmth may stiffen or narrow, and the first rooms to feel the chill are always the ones furthest away: your hands, your feet. But here's a question worth pausing on. If this is happening quietly, without pain, without urgency, how many people simply accept it as normal aging? And more importantly, what if it isn't something you have to ignore? Because something fascinating happens inside the body when circulation begins to shift. There is a quiet pattern I've observed over the years. Something that rarely begins with alarm, but often carries more weight than people realize. It starts with small signals: cold fingertips, a subtle numbness, perhaps a feeling of heaviness in the legs after a short walk. Easy to dismiss, easy to explain away. But the body has a language of its own. And research suggests these early sensations may reflect changes in how blood moves through the vascular system, especially as the elasticity of blood vessels begins to decline with age. When vessels lose that gentle flexibility, circulation doesn't stop, it simply becomes less responsive, less adaptive. And here's where the story becomes more complex. Scientists have observed that reduced circulation can gradually influence how oxygen and nutrients are delivered throughout the body. Over time, this may affect tissues, nerves, even the delicate lining of blood vessels themselves. Not suddenly, but slowly, like a river that no longer flows as freely as it once did. Imagine a stream that once moved effortlessly, now slightly thickened, meeting resistance at every turn. The water still flows, but not with the same ease, not with the same reach. So let me ask you something gently. If these signals are so subtle, so easy to overlook, how often do we wait until the body raises its voice? Because what begins as a whisper can sometimes evolve into something much harder to ignore. And yet, hidden within this process, there is a mechanism, something quietly changing inside the body that few people ever hear about. One of the earliest signs often appears so quietly, most people never think twice about it. Cold hands, cold feet. Not just occasionally, but persistently. Even in a warm room, even under a blanket, the chill lingers. Have you ever noticed that? Research suggests this may be one of the first visible clues that circulation is no longer distributing warmth evenly throughout the body. But to understand why this happens, we need to look beneath the surface. Imagine again that home heating system. The heart continues to generate warmth, just as faithfully as ever. But the challenge isn't the source, it's the delivery. Over time, blood vessels, especially the smallest ones, can lose some of their natural elasticity. Scientists have observed that this change can make it harder for blood to reach the most distant areas efficiently. And those distant areas are your hands and your feet. It's almost like living in a house where the rooms closest to the heater feel comfortable, while the far corners remain cold, no matter how high you turn up the temperature. But here's where it becomes interesting. Studies indicate that this isn't just about comfort, it's about communication. Your body may be signaling that blood flow is becoming more selective, prioritizing vital organs while reducing supply to the extremities. So let me ask you, if your body is quietly redirecting its resources, what does that say about what's happening deeper inside your system? Because coldness is only the beginning. There's another sensation, one that feels very different, yet may come from the same underlying shift. There is another sensation people often describe, not cold this time, but something stranger, a tingling, a faint buzzing, sometimes even a sudden pins and needles feeling that seems to come out of nowhere. Have you ever felt that, perhaps when sitting too long, or even while resting? Research suggests this sensation may be linked to how nerves receive oxygen. You see, nerves are incredibly sensitive structures. They rely on a steady, uninterrupted supply of oxygen-rich blood to function smoothly. When that flow becomes inconsistent, even slightly, signals can become distorted. Imagine a telephone line with static in the background. The message still travels, but not clearly. That tingling, that brief numbness, may be the nervous system reacting to these subtle interruptions. Scientists have observed that as microcirculation declines, these signals can appear more frequently, especially in the hands, feet, and lower legs. It's not always dramatic. Often it's fleeting, easy to ignore. But here's the deeper question. If your nerves are beginning to flicker in their communication, what might that reveal about the pathways feeding them? There's also something fascinating happening here. Studies indicate that reduced blood flow doesn't just affect sensation, it may influence how quickly nerves recover, how efficiently they transmit signals, and even how they respond to daily stress. It's like a dimmer switch, slowly lowering the clarity of communication. And yet, this is still only one layer of the story. Because when circulation slows further, the body begins to show it in a much more visible way. Sometimes the body doesn't whisper. Sometimes it shows you. A slight swelling around the ankles, a feeling of tightness in the shoes by the end of the day, socks leaving deeper marks than they used to. It can seem harmless, even expected. But have you ever wondered, why does this happen more often with age? Research suggests this may be connected to how efficiently blood returns back to the heart. Circulation is not just about sending blood forward, it's also about bringing it back. And this return journey depends on vessel strength, muscle movement, and subtle pressure changes within the body. When these systems become less efficient, something interesting happens. Gravity begins to win. Fluid, instead of moving freely, can start to collect in the lower parts of the body, especially the ankles and calves. Scientists have observed that this pooling effect may reflect a slowdown in vascular responsiveness. Imagine a river that no longer has enough current to push water upstream. It begins to gather in low-lying areas, forming stillness where there should be flow. So let me ask you, If fluid is lingering where it should be moving, what does that say about the strength of the system behind it? And there's more. Studies indicate that this kind of stagnation may also influence how nutrients and oxygen circulate through surrounding tissues. Because when flow slows, nourishment follows. And this leads us to another signal, one that often appears not at rest, but in motion. It often reveals itself during something simple, a walk, perhaps a short distance, something that once felt effortless, and then, gradually, a tightness begins, a cramp, a heaviness in the legs that wasn't there before. You pause, you rest, and slowly it fades. Have you experienced that pattern? Research suggests this type of discomfort may be connected to how muscles receive oxygen during movement. When you walk, your muscles demand more fuel, more oxygen, more nutrients, more flow. But if circulation cannot keep up with that demand, the muscles begin to struggle. Scientists have observed that this can create a sensation similar to an engine running without enough fuel. It doesn't stop immediately, but it strains, it resists, it loses its smooth rhythm. Imagine driving a car uphill with just a trickle of gasoline reaching the engine. The movement continues, but not without effort. That heaviness, that cramping, may be the body signaling that supply and demand are no longer in balance. And here's something worth reflecting on. If your muscles are asking for more and not receiving it, how does that affect your confidence in movement, your willingness to walk, to explore, to stay active? Because mobility is not just physical, it's deeply connected to independence. And yet, the story doesn't end when the body is still. In fact, for many people, the most unusual sensations appear when everything else becomes quiet. Nighttime has a way of revealing what the day conceals. The world quiets, the body rests, and yet, for some, the legs begin to stir. A strange sensation, difficult to describe, not quite pain, not quite discomfort, almost like something is moving beneath the surface, a crawling, a pulling, an urge that makes stillness feel impossible. Have you ever felt that? Research suggests this phenomenon, often described as restlessness in the legs, may be linked to subtle changes in circulation and nerve signaling. During the night, when movement decreases, blood flow can become less dynamic, and for some individuals, this shift may make underlying inefficiencies more noticeable. Scientists have observed that the circadian rhythm, the body's internal clock, also plays a role. Certain processes slow down at night, including aspects of vascular regulation. Imagine a city where traffic lights dim after midnight. The roads are still there, but movement becomes less coordinated, less predictable. That restless feeling may be the body's way of asking for motion, for stimulation, for flow. But here's the intriguing part. Why would the body crave movement at the very moment it's supposed to rest? What is it trying to restore? Because beneath all of these signals, coldness, tingling, swelling, heaviness, restlessness, there is a deeper shift unfolding, a biological change that many people never hear about, yet it quietly shapes how blood moves every single day. Deep within your blood vessels, something remarkable is constantly happening. Or at least, it used to. There's a molecule, tiny, invisible, yet profoundly powerful, that scientists have studied for decades. It's called nitric oxide, and research suggests it plays a central role in how your blood vessels expand and relax. In simple terms, it helps your circulation stay fluid, responsive, alive. But here's what makes this so fascinating. Studies indicate that after the age of 60, the body's natural production of nitric oxide may decline, sometimes significantly. Not overnight, but gradually, like a dimming light. And when that happens, blood vessels may lose some of their ability to widen when needed. Imagine a highway where the lanes can no longer expand during rush hour. The traffic still moves, but more slowly, more tightly, with more resistance. That resistance may be felt as everything we've been discussing. But nitric oxide is only part of the story. Scientists have also observed the role of low-grade inflammation, often called silent inflammation. Over time, this can influence the inner lining of blood vessels, making circulation less smooth, almost as if the blood itself encounters friction. And then there's the thyroid, a small gland with a powerful influence. When its activity slows, research suggests it may act like a lowered gas pedal for the entire metabolic system. So let me ask you, if multiple systems are gently slowing at once, what happens when they begin to overlap? Because this is where something truly interesting begins to emerge. A possibility, hidden in plain sight, involving something surprisingly simple. Sometimes the most intriguing discoveries are not found in complexity, but in combination. Across different fields of research, scientists have explored how certain natural compounds may support the body's ability to maintain healthy circulation, not as a single solution, but as a synergy. And this is where something quietly powerful begins to take shape. There are foods, simple, familiar, that contain natural compounds linked to nitric oxide pathways, antioxidant activity, and inflammatory balance. For example, research suggests that beetroot contains dietary nitrates, which the body can convert into nitric oxide. A fascinating transformation, one that begins in the mouth and continues through the bloodstream. Then there's ginger, long studied for its warming properties and its potential role in supporting circulation through anti-inflammatory pathways. Pomegranate, rich in polyphenols, which studies indicate may help protect the inner lining of blood vessels. Turmeric, with its active compound curcumin, often explored for its relationship with inflammation and vascular health. And lemon, a simple source of vitamin C, which research suggests plays a role in maintaining the flexibility of blood vessels. Individually, each of these elements has been studied, but together, that's where the story becomes more interesting. Imagine an orchestra. Each instrument plays its part, but when they come together, something harmonious emerges. So the question becomes, what happens when these ingredients are combined into one simple daily ritual? Because the way this combination is prepared and when it's used may matter more than most people expect. There is something deeply calming about a morning ritual. A quiet kitchen, soft light through the window, the gentle rhythm of preparing something with intention. And this is where the idea begins to take form, not as a remedy, but as a practice. Research-inspired routines often emphasize simplicity, and in this case, the combination is surprisingly straightforward. A small amount of beetroot, paired with pomegranate, a touch of fresh ginger, a hint of turmeric, a squeeze of lemon, blended gently with water or coconut water. Each ingredient carrying its own story, its own set of compounds that scientists have explored in relation to circulation and vascular response. But here's something worth pausing on. Why does preparation matter? Because studies suggest that how nutrients are combined and how they are introduced into the body may influence how they are absorbed and utilized. Blending, for example, may help make certain compounds more accessible. Timing may influence how the body responds. Imagine planting seeds in soil. The environment matters just as much as the seed itself. So let me ask you, what if this isn't just about what you consume, but how you introduce it into your daily rhythm? Because there is one final layer to this story, a small addition, often overlooked, yet quietly powerful. And when this final piece is added, something shifts in a way that surprises many people. There is a moment, just after you begin your day, when the body is especially receptive. Not fully active, not fully at rest. A transition point. And research suggests that what you do in this window may influence how your body responds for hours afterward. Now here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Because it may not be just about what you consume, but what you do next. Scientists have observed that light movement, gentle, simple activity, can stimulate circulation in a very immediate way. Not intense exercise, just motion. A few minutes of walking in place, slow arm circles, a quiet awakening of the muscles. Why does this matter? Because movement itself may encourage the body to utilize pathways associated with nitric oxide more effectively, almost like turning a key in an engine that is already prepared to start. Imagine striking a match and then giving it just enough oxygen to become a steady flame. So what happens when these two elements, nutrient support and gentle movement, meet at the same moment? Could that be why some people begin to notice subtle changes? Not dramatically, but gradually, like warmth returning where there was once chill. And perhaps the most important question of all, what small, consistent ritual might help you feel more connected to your own sense of flow, your mobility, your independence? Because sometimes the body doesn't ask for something complicated. Sometimes it simply responds to attention. And this is where your story quietly continues.